I feel like just in general with cancer, people think it's a guaranteed death sentence, and that is not something that's true. And I do believe that there's miracles every single day, right? And this is something my mother would ask me, or a talk that she gave me. She said, "There's miracles every single day. Why can't you be one of them?" Right? And I feel like we always cool or like we'll focus on the negative and the bad, like, oh my God, what if I die? What if this happens? What if that happens? Well, it's like, okay, well, why don't we change our frame of thinking and think more positive, right? Well, what if it's okay? What if it does work out? What if you are able to do all those great things after? And I feel like that is more healthy, focusing on the more positive and changing the narrative of cancer from being this horrific, terrible thing, because it is bad. My name is Brandi Benson. I am a cancer survivor. I am a U.S. Army veteran and a realtor, newly realtor. And I spent a lot of time spreading awareness about sarcoma cancer, specifically Ewing sarcoma, and sit on a couple of different boards. One of them is the Sarcoma Alliance, and the other one is the PRCRP, which is the Peer Research Reviewed Cancer Program.
So you said you're a cancer survivor, so and then you're part of, like these sarcoma, I don't know if you call them coalitions, foundations, etc. But you're really ingrained in the community, and so clearly you had an event. And can you tell me a little bit more about what happened, and also how long ago it was too?
Yeah. So in 2008, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer. I think I was 23 years young. It was in many years ago, about 16 years ago. So it's quite some time. And I was deployed in Iraq. So I had just got deployed. I was at my main duty station at Fort Carson in Colorado for, I think it was a month and 9 days. And then we were getting ready to get shipped out. And then during that time, I had just joined the military. I graduated from basic training, AIT, and now I'm going to my main duty station. And I find out that I have orders and I'm going to Iraq. So, of course, I'm extremely scared. I'm very nervous. I had just learned how to shoot a M16, how to, manhandle a 50 cal, how to do all these really great, military strong things. And now I'm taking all of that training that I've kind of crammed in that little bit of, I think it was like 4 months of training. I have to go out to the real world and take all of this experience. And hopefully I know what I'm doing now, right? Get to Iraq and it's everything that everybody talks about. It's scary, it's dusty there. It's extremely hot. This is the first time I've been away from my family. So I'm kind of, nervous and I'm in war. I have like all of these emotions and feelings going through me and I'm by myself. I'm not with anybody that I really know. So I'm there for maybe like a month and a half. And then I start experiencing these different type of symptoms that we would later kind of tie back to the burn pits that I was exposed to and several other soldiers were exposed to as well. So around, we'll say like December timeframe, I'm feeling exhausted. I am
Can you real
so
quick? I'm
tired.
so
Yes.
curious. What do you mean by so I do have family members who were in Vietnam, Korean War, and stuff like that, but they were very quiet about their experience. So I don't know if this is specific to Iraq and all that, but I'm very curious just about before you got diagnosed. First off, what are burn pits? I
Mm,
hope that's not like the most like
yeah.
ignorant question ever, but I just don't know. And then number two, what inspired you to go and fight in Iraq?
Yes. Okay. So your first question, the burn pits it's a huge burn pit. It's literally like a burn pit. And they put all the trash in there. So anything that you can't dispose of. So there's batteries, there's weapons, there's syringes for medication, there is regular trash. And you have to set it on fire because you can't just leave all this trash there. So you have to burn it. And so that soot and that smoke and all of that carcinogen things that are floating all around in the air, you're all exposed to it. So the enemy is also exposed to it, but the military people, it's on the fob. So all the trash will go onto this burn pit to burn everything. Because where are you going to put it? We don't have anywhere to put this. Where there's no garbage man. There's no one that's going to come and pick it up on Monday or Sunday or whatever the day is. So you have to burn it so you can kind of minimize the all of the materials that you're being used. So there's animals in there, there's tires in there were trucks in there. So you're just burning everything to get rid of it. And so that smoke is very toxic to the people that
Yeah.
are operating on it around it. And then the people who are in like closer vicinity and it kind of just, it stands out. So we had a burn pit that was on our base that, I wasn't operating on it, but you could still see like the soot in the air. You could still smell it really well. You knew when it was, being burned because the sky would look black. So you were exposed to these toxic exposures because we had to get rid of the trash. And then the answer to your second question was, why did I join the military? That's a great question. I joined the military because of two reasons. The first was because I needed like stability.
Mhm.
I needed to have, medical, dental, the insurance. I needed to have a job. I needed to like kind of like propel and start my career. And my sister had joined the military before I did. And so I was in college. I was at Chicago State at the time. Aren't you from Chicago?
Well, I've been
Illinois,
here
right?
long enough to maybe we can
Yeah,
say
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
from Chicago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I went
Okay,
to
wow.
Chicago State, in I think it was like 2006, 2007, a little bit of 2008, and then I dropped out to join the military. But my sister had joined first, and so I was like, the older sister, maybe I should be doing this. Why am I not starting my life? Like, she's gonna have all these great things, and she kind of was really the reason why I joined. I from wanted to, have something going for myself, but I was like my sister's joining, I should probably also join. So I ended up joining the military. And then when I talked to my mother about it, she was not very happy. She was really nervous that both of her daughters were going to join at the exact same time. And then she thought we were going to get deployed to Iraq. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Like, you don't have to worry about that. It's totally going to be fine. And of course, mothers have really great intuition. And that's exactly what happens. After my AIT, my basic training, all of that, I go to Iraq. I mean, I go to my first duty station, which was Fort Carson in Colorado, and then we
I'm
get
actually
deployed.
originally from Colorado. That's where I was like, that's where I had a friend who went from straight from high school to the Air Force.
Wow. Yeah,
And then my partner worked for the Air Force, different. He worked in
yeah,
self-driving cars it quite a few years ago. Yeah.
yeah, Colorado Springs. Yep, that's where I was
Yep,
at.
yep. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. I know a little. Go ahead.
Yes. So yeah, that's where I joined from, and then we went to Iraq, and it was again very exhausting, very scary. And then that's when I started having the different symptoms from the burn pits. And I didn't before, we didn't tie it to burn pits. We just thought, oh well, I came up with this really crazy cancer. Like what was this? But the symptoms were really not very prominent until it became apparent, right? So like the symptoms I was experiencing, it was in December, and I was just really tired. Like I was exhausted. No matter how much sleep I got, I was so tired. So I thought maybe because I'm depressed, I'm in war, I'm away from my family, it's Christmas time, strangers, that's probably what's going on. So I kept kind of sleeping it off and sleeping it off. And then one day I went to the gym and I was working out like crazy. I mean, there's nothing else really to do while you're deployed. So I was working out like 3 times a day. And I did legs like on a Tuesday or something. And then I end up stretching and I pull my left leg up to my chest and I run like my hand down the medial part of my leg, just kind of pushing on it. And I feel a lump. I was like, "What is that? That's so weird. That's so strange." And I was like, "God, I must be like working out some serious muscles because like, where is this coming from? I've never had this. I've been an athlete my entire time. I'm now just training with like a bodybuilder guy. So I'm thinking, maybe this is something different. Maybe it's normal because I'm doing all these different exercises." So I thought that's what it was. And then I waited like a week, same thing, like it wasn't hurting. I would push it, it wouldn't move, would like when I would stand up straight, you couldn't see it. You could only see it if I laid back and pulled my leg up. And I was like, that is so odd. And I was like, huh. But I was really tired. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to show some of my medics, the medics, those are the hospital people, like the doctors in Iraq. And I will show my friends, and maybe somebody will say, hey, this looks strange. You need to take some time off and sleep it off. And so I was like, yes, like that's what I want. I want some rest. That's what I need. So I go around like showing people, like, yeah, look at my leg. Look what's going on. And I have this problem. So I show my NCO, I show a couple of my friends. And then they tell me to go to the doctors, and I was like, perfect. Like they're gonna think like something's wrong. This is great. So I go to the doctors, and I kind of like pull my trouser, and I tighten it around the tumor. And they're like, like drop your pants, let's take a look. So I do that. And then they bring in somebody, then they bring in another person, and they bring somebody else. And I'm like, this is weird. Yeah. I'm like, why won't they say anything? They're like, okay, well, we're not quite sure what it is, but we're going to send you immediately to Baghdad. And I was like, okay, like, well, I think that I don't know how many hours it might have been an hour and a half away, like a flight over to Baghdad. And I knew that I would be staying the night there, but Baghdad was a green zone. So that meant that there weren't any mortars, any shootings, any like enemies trying to get on the base. So I knew that I'd be safe and I'd have like clean, nice place to take a shower. I won't have to worry about bombs coming in and, ruining the day and like all these like terrible things. So I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I get on the helicopter. It was an extremely scary ride there. Get off, I go to the doctors and I think I get a CT scan. And the doctor's like really smug, kind of like cocky, just his breath smells like Red Bull. He looks exhausted. So I'm like, okay. So he tells me, hey, everything looks fine. There's blood flowing in and out of this area. We're gonna leave it up to you. You could go to Germany to get an MRI, or you can go back to Iraq. And I was like, or go back to Fob Echo. So I said, take me to Germany. Why would I want to go back to war? Like, I don't want to do that. So I knew again, if I get further out, I'll be further away from war. I'll have better food, like, and I'll get rest and I can catch up on my sleep because I'm so tired. So I then go to Germany to get an MRI, get there, and I then find out that like something's really wrong because I'm learning that if you go from, your original place from Baghdad, you don't get sent back and you get put on orders to go to Germany, then something's really wrong with you. But I didn't think it was a tumor. I didn't even know what a tumor was. I had no idea. I didn't know you could get cancer anywhere else besides breast cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer, brain cancer, throat cancer. Like, I didn't know you get cancer in your leg. So I thought maybe it was just I pulled a muscle or I don't know what it was. But a tumor was never anything that ever crossed my mind. I was still working out. I was sitting in the sauna. I was still like hanging out and doing things. I think while I was in Germany, I went and got a tattoo. Like I was doing all of these like weird, random things that I would have never have done had I known that it was like really serious.
So you weren't really concerned. You were just kinda like, "This is probably gonna be figured out here," and then did you just expect, "It's gonna get figured out, gonna go back to
Yeah.
Iraq, it's
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought
Yeah.
I was going to Germany for, like, a little small vacation to just get some rest because I was so tired. I was like, "I just need to catch up on my sleep," but that's one of the symptoms is, like, extreme fatigue, but I didn't know that, and I was extremely cancer illiterate, had no idea what tumors were, didn't even know it, but I knew what leukemia was, but that's, like, blood, right? It's not like a
Yeah.
solid tumor. I had no idea that this was, like, something extremely detrimental to my health. So I get to the doctors there, we make our appointment, and, he's like, "Well, it's a tumor." I'm like, "A tumor? What's a tumor? Like, what is that?" Right? So I get on the call. I was talking to my mom, forgot to mention I'm in constant contact with my mother, talk to her about what's going on, and then, relay the information to her that, they think it's a tumor. She's like, "Well," she's like, "Well, how do you feel about that?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I don't even know what that is." So I go online and I'm like, benign or malignant, I'm like, okay, so it has to be something non-cancerous. Like, there's no way I have cancer. They'll probably just cut whatever it is out and then I'll be on my way. So we do the biopsy. And I remember getting the biopsy done, them numbing it up and stuff. And then them saying, as I'm like walking out and leaving, that he hopes and prays it's not Ewing sarcoma. I was like, what is that? And he's like, I hope it's a nerve sheath tumor. I'm like, what the hell is that? What are these things? Right. And so back then I didn't have like a recording on the call. So I couldn't like record the call. So I just remember like writing Ewing sarcoma, and I probably spelled it wrong, Ewing sarcoma and like a nerve sheath tumor. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go back and take these things back. He hopes that that's not what they are. So go back, I get on the computer and I type it up, and one says, cancer. I'm like, oh God, like there's no way I have that. And I look up the other one, and the other one's cancer. And I'm like, no way. Like this can't be happening. This is just impossible. I'm like, they for sure Like, there's no way that it could be either of these things. Like, this doctor is wrong. So we're waiting for the results to come back. And I then start getting like, kind of nervous. And I'm like, maybe this is it, maybe I have cancer and like what's gonna happen. So and, I read about the nerve sheath tumor, the Ewing sarcoma, how it spreads to your lungs, your spinal cord, and like your brainstem. And I'm like, what is going on? Right. Like I have no idea what's happening because my life just a week ago, I was fine, or I thought I was fine, and now I'm like possibly going to be passing away. So I was like, this is crazy. And I think I just turned 24. So I was like, I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. And I'm extremely healthy. I'm in the best shape of my life. I have a six pack. I'm a woman. And I'm like, I have a six pack. Like, I'm in great shape. I'm running faster than some of the guys. I'm, doing more push ups than some of them. Like, I am in tip top shape. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. So I'm like, how the hell did I get this? Happened because I am like the epitome of health. Like I should not be going through any of these problems. What's going on? So it just didn't make any sense to me. So 2 weeks later, or however long it was, I get the results back. I go and I sit down, and the doctor's like, he looks so nervous. And he was like a younger guy, and he looked so nervous. I can see like the beads of sweat collecting on his head, and he looked really nervous. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is probably going to be really bad. And he's like, well, do you have any family here with you? And I said, I don't have any family here. And he's like, okay. And he has like these, results in his hand. He's like holding it really tight. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this can't be happening. And he's like, well, I'm really sorry to give this news to you, but you have Ewing sarcoma. And I was like, that's what the doctor said he didn't want me to have. And I was like, okay, so what happens now? What do I do? And he's like, well, he said, I don't want you to get lost in the system. I was like, what is that? I was like, okay. He's like, I want you to make sure you get the help that you can. He's like, we're gonna send you to the top oncologist doctors in the military. And I was like, okay, well, where am I going? He's like, we're gonna send you to Walter Reed Medical Center that's in DC. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and then basically that's it. And I was like, well, what do I do? And he's like, we won't have a plan for you until you go to Walter Reed. And I was like, okay. I was like, so what happens now? And he's like, well, you have cancer. And I was like, but what happens now? And he's like, basically, there's nothing he can do. Like, he's just telling me this is what's happening. And, you're going to get some orders pretty soon in a couple days. And then I'm going to be sent back to Walter Reed. And I was like, okay. And so I went back and I remember just like feeling like I was floating. I was like, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't hear anything. Like everything was like it was loud, but I couldn't hear anything. And I was like in this trance. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like my mom is gonna have to watch me die. My sister is they're gonna watch me like wither away. And I was so upset about it. Like I was crying profusely. And I remember talking on the phone and calling my mom and just being so sad and so like already defeated. And I was like, I had this really bad news. And she's like, what's going on? I think it was like 5 in the morning there. And remember, my sister's also deployed. And so my mom is watching my nephew Donovan. So he's 2 at the time. And she's just like, what's going on? And I said, I have cancer. And she let out this terrible scream. It was so sad, so sad. She just started screaming. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do I do? How do I fix this? And she said, I'm leaving everything behind and I'm gonna come take care of you. It always makes me a little choked up. So she says she's leaving everything behind and she's gonna come take care of me. So she left her friends, her job, the house, everything, left it all to come take care of me at Walter Reed to like be my support system. So she left everything. So I got sent over to Walter Reed. I'm there at Walter Reed. My mom comes like a couple days later and she was like the biggest support system, the biggest advocate you could ever ask for because I'm thinking I'm going to die. Right. And she's asking all the right questions, taking the notes, making sure like the doctors are listening. And, just she's like, she has a job and she's doing a fantastic job of like making sure that she's going to keep me alive. So she does a really great job of that. So yeah, she comes down there, she comes with my nephew and we had no idea where they were going to sleep at, what was going to be happening, if they would have food. She just didn't know. She was like, I'm leaving everything behind. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure this works out and we're going to fight through this together. So they come And at first, we didn't have anywhere for them to sleep, so they were sleeping on a pull-out couch. Donovan was sleeping with me in the hospital bed, and we're just like there together. But then the military ends up having it's called a non-medical attendant (MA), and then so then we're able to pay her and give her the housing that she needed. So now they're like maybe not even a mile away. They're like on the premise of Walter Reed, so they have a house that they're at. It's a hotel, but she lives there the entire 11 months. She's there every single day at all of my treatments. She's again taking the notes, making sure everything's all right. If I had like any reactions, she would always call and make sure we got those resolved. But it was an extremely tough, but she was there for me from the very first treatment sessions to the very last treatment sessions where she was like wheeling me out in a wheelchair because I was so weak I couldn't walk. I couldn't sign myself out. My handwriting was so it wasn't legible at all. Like I couldn't even draft anything. So she was signing papers on my behalf. So she signed me out and we did it. It was extremely hard. I did over 101 rounds of chemotherapy. I had 7 leg surgeries. I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to, just kind of navigate this whole entire new world because I grew up as an athlete and doing things and being active and exercising. And now I had this massive chunk missing out of my leg because they removed the adductor out of my leg. And life was totally different now. Now I have to figure out what I was good at, what boundaries did I have, what could I not do anymore, which was a lot of things that were physical. But yeah, it was a tough, tough, tough time. Tough time. And go
I
ahead.
have a question. So this one might be hard to answer. So if you don't have an answer to this, that's totally fine. But I'm thinking you don't expect to get deployed to Iraq, but you did. And you probably had no thought in your mind that A, you were going to get cancer, B, you're going to get one of the rarest kinds. I'm
Right.
kind of curious, was there a point during your journey of sarcoma recovery where you're like, I'd rather be in Iraq? Was there ever a point like I'd rather have like stuck to what the plan was gonna be?
Yes, I can
Yeah.
definitely say I that was not part of the go get I mean, it's easy now. Do you wanna get deployed? Do you want cancer? I'd rather get deployed. Still till this day, like, it was extremely hard. It was very tough on our body. So there was so many different symptoms that a lot of people don't talk about, right? Like the nails falling off or so my nails didn't fall off completely, but they were turned blue. I had really bad neuropathy, right? So the tingling was always a thing. I had my feet tons of neuropathy in my feet because I was so young in my treatment stage. They also gave me like an option to freeze my eggs because a lot of people don't know. You might have kids and you might not. And it's going to really destroy the reproductive system in my body. So I opted to be put on this thing called the Lupron shot. So it was like a shot that they put in the back of your hip and it kind of like shuts down or preserves the eggs is what it's supposed to do. So instead of having 11% chance of having kids, now I think I bumped it up to maybe 50%. Um, long story short, it didn't work. I should have never have done it
Uh,
anyway. So on top of going through the treatments, you're throwing up, you're tingly. I was hearing things. I was seeing stuff and people and things and then the smells were horrific and you'd have a metallic taste in your mouth that was just terrible. On top of all of this, and now I'm going through menopause, right? Because it induces you into menopause. So I'm getting hot flashes that are aggressive. Like my body is going from a normal, whatever, 92 to like 106, and it's happening every 15 minutes. And it's just terrible. I'm like drenched in sweat. My hair is gone. I'm bald. I'm hot. I'm not feeling well. Like it was just terrible, terrible, terrible. But those are like the things that I had to go through so I could be here today. But I definitely much have rather stayed in Iraq, stayed on that track versus going through the treatment and then trying to process what was happening, learn this new life. Because when you leave Iraq, I do feel like you come back a different person, but I do also feel like it might be worse for some people, but for me, and I can't say if it would have been worse or not because I didn't complete my entire tour there, but I don't feel like it had been as bad as it was with cancer because now cancer, I have, I'm a cancer survivor, but cancer can come back anytime. I'm missing a massive part out of my leg. I still have to go through these hot flashes. I've been going through menopause since I was 24, so it's like,
Wow.
it's terrible. And you live with this for the rest of your life. And, this is the new normal for me.
So you have a part of your leg missing, but it's did you have, like, an actual amputation or anything like that?
No. So because the cancer didn't spread, but it was extremely high up in my hip area. So the cancer was in my groin muscle and the adductor muscle. And they removed that entire thing is gone, right? So I don't have that in my leg anymore. So now it's just they tied my hamstring and my quad together to try to give it more of like a full look, a creative approach to that. But it's still like a very small, thin leg compared to a nice, thicker, healthier leg, right?
Yeah.
I always say I have like a Angelina Jolie leg and a Beyonce leg. That's what I say. Got a thick leg and a small leg. But that's what it is. And like, I'm not able to sprint anymore. I can't run. I can't if I'm sitting down, I always have to use something to help me get up because there's no muscle. That muscle is gone. It doesn't grow
Oh,
back.
wow.
It's forever gone. Forever. Yep.
And you were such an active person before joining the military and everything. Hence, then you join the military, which is very, very active. You have to be very fit to do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially as a woman too, because
Hmm.
like women are not built the same as
Right.
like men are. So you have to
Right.
put like double energy in to really get to a certain place. And now, you have this experience and it's your leg. I mean, I don't know if it's different, if it's part of your arm or anything, but like the fact you're just talking about, you used to sprint a lot, and that was something that you could do. You were faster than some of the other
Hmm.
guys, even,
Hmm.
and now you can't do that.
Mm-mm.
Does that still sit with you in a negative way?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things I wish that I could change, but it's either that or, I or die. And also I have to be grateful for the things that I do have and not try to harp too much on what I could have had and what I wish would have been differently done because I can't live in the past. I can't live in this fantasy land of what if this could have happened? Like I have my life now. There was several people on that ward that ended up passing away. I was the only one that survived. And I was the only one with a very rare and aggressive cancer, right? So it's just like I don't understand it, So I get a lot of, or I used to have a lot of like survivor remorse and just guilt from it because there
Yeah.
were people that had, like a regular breast cancer, that's very studied. There's a lot of options and treatments for those, and that person would pass away. Or there's somebody with like, not so rare stomach cancer, and then that person would pass away. Or there was lots of leukemia on the ward, and they would all pass away. But for some reason, my cancer didn't spread. I didn't die, and I still have my legs. So it's like I have to remember like how far I came to be here today to talk on this podcast, to come talk to Start coming up, at the end of next month. So it's like I just have to remember like I fought really hard to be here. Not that nobody else did, but just with my unique situation. So it's like I can't live in the past or wishing that I could have done whatever these things because at the end of the day, I have my life, I have my health, I'm still here, and I just have to be grateful because a lot of them who did fight very hard, they weren't able to survive.
Yeah. And how is so you recovered, and I know that part of your leg is gone now, and you life obviously looks different for you, physically and probably, how you actually manage day-to-day life.
Mhm.
But, talking about like, who you are as a person, and I know for people it might be different. It's like, what's your career, what's your hobbies, what are your interests, what things you advocate for?
Mhm.
Do you think that experience significantly changed how you lead life now?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't think I would ever be in the oncology space, like working with nonprofits, speaking at different organizations, sharing my personal story that because I'm affected by that, I don't think that would have been something I would have pursued. Because I feel like science and oncology is extremely challenging just in general to understand and to know. And science was not my favorite subject and neither was math. So I stayed away from anything that was not that my strong suit. I stayed with English and arts and PE. Fantastic at that. So I stayed at those things. So anything that had to do with science or math, that was not in my wheelhouse. So I know for sure this would not have been my life at all had I not been diagnosed with a sarcoma for sure.
And how did you feel? Because I'm sure after you had recovered and everything, there's probably a lot more clarity that came to you, might have come like years after and all of that. Reflecting back, how does it feel to know that this is such a rare cancer? And even now, we don't have the amount of treatments we need to even like, people don't even get really a choice. I mean, they
Yeah.
do, but the choices
Yeah.
suck terrible.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I still think I feel like it's still surreal, just like when I got diagnosed with it. Like, it's just so strange, and it's so the demographic that usually gets it's like a Caucasian little boy, and I'm black, I'm a woman, and I was in my like early 20s. So it's like, how did I even get this dice roll? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And then how did I get to live? How did I get to keep my leg? Like, and how am I still healthy? So I don't have the answers to it. I really don't. None of it makes sense. But I don't believe that miracles do make sense at all. And so I just classify this as something that like I can't explain. I must have more things to do here on this earth. I definitely want to share my story and encourage people, but I don't know like how or why or what the reason is because of all of the things are kind of like pinned up against me. I just don't know. I really don't.
Did the experience make you, I don't know if you were spiritual before, but
Mhm.
at the very least, did it make you spiritual or more spiritual after you went through this experience at all?
Yeah, so I feel like I grew up pretty religious, not in a sense of like, like a fanatic or anything. We went to church. My biological father was extremely into church and doing all of that, but I didn't grow up with him. I grew up with my mother and my stepdad. So there was a church that we did attend and we did those things. It wasn't like a super strong foundational staple in my life. We were more like spiritual and more like open to other things besides like Christianity and like that religion. But when I went through cancer, definitely I feel like it brought me closer to God because I was pleading with God. I was like, listen, if you let me live and you give me a second chance at this life, like I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. And I've stuck to that plan. Like I had a journal at the time, and the journal was because I thought I was gonna die because they were telling me I had like a 15% chance of living. It was gonna spread to my brain, my spine, and my lungs. So I'm thinking I'm going to die. And the doctors coming in kept kind of like prepping me. I had to do my will, I had to get all of the legal things. And
Oh my
yeah, I had to
gosh.
do all of my stuff and get it prepared because they thought I was gonna pass away. They were like, if you survive a year, you will not make it in 5 years. And I was like, oh I'm not gonna make it to 30. This is insane. So I had a journal and a journal was just kind of just talking about what was going on, what was happening, my feelings. It was just a journal, right? And I was leaving it for my nephew because he was two at the time, he's gonna be three. And I wanted to leave something to him because I was not gonna have a relationship with him. He would not know who I was. He wouldn't know anything. So I then decided, okay, God, if you let me live, I will take this journal and I will make it a book. Right. And I was like, and then I'll speak at these organizations. I will share my story. I will pour into others. Like, just give me the opportunity to do it. Like, I promise I'll be a good servant. Like, I can do this. And I was just begging and begging and begging after treatment was over, it was finished and done, and I had this journal that was on my laptop, and I was like, "Okay, I have to write a book. How do I do that? How do I do these things? Like, what do I do?" But I made this promise to God, and I was like, "If I get to live, like, I have to do this." So I ended up joining like a top school. I had no idea it was a great school. I was just literally like passing out applications and submitting to different places. I got accepted to Savannah College of Art and Design, which is like a super prestigious school, SCAD.
To SAIC.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I know it's random that I now am in research, but no, I love SCAD. SCAD's amazing.
Oh
Good for
my
you.
god. Oh my god, yeah. So I went to SCAD, I got my MFA there, and I took my journal and I made it into a book. But it was first my thesis. So, when you get do your graduate program, you have to have something you're gonna work on your thesis. So I said, okay, God help me. Like, how am I gonna do this? What do I have to do? I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this journal, I'm gonna make this my thesis. And then hopefully they say it's amazing and great. And I'll get, free feedback. And then I'm gonna change it into a book. And that's what I'm gonna do. And so that's exactly what I did. They loved it. They're like, listen, Brandy, this was fantastic. And I worked on this thing for 2 years. And they're like, the only thing is that you have to finish it. And I was like, yeah, right. This is done. Like I'm finished. And so I didn't finish it. I finished it, but they wanted like more out of it. And I was like, that's it. Like I'm not doing anything else. So I finished the book. I published it. I kept my word to God. And that's how the book came about. It's called The Enemy Inside Me. Instead of it being like journal entries, it's more like a memoir, but it talks about my life from like, being deployed, my family history with cancer, from my stepfather, watching that and how that happened and unfolded, being deployed in Iraq, and you know, my treatment experience and my mother being there, and all of that. That's how the book came about. And then from there it was getting on podcasts like this. I'm sharing my story, writing in magazines about my story, whatever I could do to spread hope, joining an organization, the Sarcoma Alliance, and then being invited to be on the PRCRP. That's like huge because they deal with gigantic grants. I think one our budget's like 65 million and we help kind of allocate the funds to different research. And I sit on this board, or I'm part of this organization as the consumer perspective doing this. Like it's amazing that like life has turned out to be so just it's just like a beautiful story. It's just flowing and everything is working, and I've stuck to my guns and it's all working out. It's been an incredible, grateful ride thus far for sure.
And how did the release of the book go?
It went really well. I got really great feedback on it. So it's on Amazon. It's called The Enemy Inside Me. It went well because I was kind of like I worked on it for so long. I didn't make it like a big deal out of it. I didn't write the book to sell millions of dollars and like to be the number one publisher,
Right.
author. That was just not on my radar. I did not care about any of those things. I was just like I have to do what I said I was going to do. I pleaded with God. At one point, I was literally on the ground crying and begging for life. And in exchange, like I said, I would do these things. And so I did it. So it was more of like just checking off. So I didn't have like a release party, didn't do anything extravagant, although it's like a huge accomplishment to be a published author, to have this. It wasn't something that like, didn't make or break my career. It was just literally I was checking something off the box that I was supposed to do.
Yeah, so you kept your promise basically, which I think that's great because I think it's the most important promises we make.
Yeah.
The most important promises that we keep are the ones that we make to ourselves, and yours was
Yes.
with God, but there's you
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering, it's so interesting that you took this journal that you were going to write, you turned it into a book. It's not like it's exactly journal entries. It was more like you took journal entries that turned into a memoir. Was there and I hope this is an okay question to ask. Was there a specific letter you wrote to your family members, whomever, that felt like the letter?
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote a
Yeah.
goodbye letter, I did, and I couldn't get through it. It was so hard. I just would be crying and, it was really hard. So, like, we're writing, I think I was using pen, of course, and, drafting it up, but there's, like, teardrops all in the letter and stuff. I don't know if I ever gave that letter to them because I didn't they didn't need it. I didn't pass away, but it was a very heartfelt letter to my mom and to my sister and to my nephew and just saying, like, "Man, I'm sorry. Like, I'll watch over you guys. I tried as hard as I could, and I just, it was my time to go." But it was a very, very, very tough letter to write because like, how do you prepare to say goodbye to people that you love? And then I feel like you're hurting them, and it's like, I don't want
Yeah.
to hurt them because I'm leaving. And they then have this hole in their life and this void because I left. And I was like, I just don't want to cause people pain. I don't want to be, the messages or the memories my mom, she says are just, they're just painful things to remember. So it was really hard for me to write it. But I did. I wrote one.
Did you ever revisit it, like, for your book or for any sort of
Never.
reason?
No, I
Never.
never did. And I don't know if I would because I don't know. I just feel like it's so sad. It's so
Yeah.
sad and so raw, but maybe I could, but I haven't. I've never opened it up because it's just wasn't I don't have to use it. So I use that Like anything I need to say, like I could say it now. Emotions and feelings I was feeling then are like it's 17 years ago, whatever I was, what I was going through, but the feelings I had like is totally different. But I've never opened it, never. And it's in storage somewhere, I'm sure.
That's really interesting. I actually had a couple other people that I interviewed who they already had their letters prepped, and they one of them was a goodbye letter and the other one was well, the daughter actually did end up passing away, and so I was interviewing the mom, and the
Mm,
mom ended up reading the letter. She happened to find it and after she passed away, and it was what's interesting is when I hear those letters, I don't know, I didn't expect anything. Like I had no expectations. But I think when we say things are I don't want to say vague or, cheesy sayings or anything like that, I think
mhm,
it's okay, let's say like cheesy. Like when people say, oh, it's cliche or cheesy or something like that, I think it's because a lot of people say it when there's not that actual emotion behind it. And I think when you start to hear letters like this,
mhm,
obviously no pressure for you to read yours, but like when you hear them,
mhm,
it's different. It comes
mhm.
across it's very heavy, and it
Yeah,
depends on who's reading them. But it's really interesting because you think, as someone who doesn't hear these letters, you expect that there's going to be some really grand insight or whatever, when really
yeah,
it's really exactly it's just what it is,
yeah.
and, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like the small little moments and memories that you capture that you write down, but they mean big to them or big to the family because they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember, you know, you us going on that walk and you finding that flower." It could have been just any kind of flower, but like it was special, whatever that time, that moment was, and it brings you right back to that moment. And you're like, yeah, I remember that. And it's sad. And so I haven't opened it up. I haven't revisited it. I just feel like it was like a tool that was going to be used in the event that I did pass away, and because didn't die, there was no need for it anymore. Whatever
Yeah.
it is that I thought I should have been saying, I better have said it by now. It's been 17 years. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting you kept it.
I did. I know. I
Yeah.
kept it. I did, and I kept all my journal entries, and they're, like, crappy. Because you're on treatment and, like, the words I'm writing don't even make sense, and, like, I'm spelling things wrong, and I remember one of the I don't know if it was isotopin, but one of the chemotherapies made me stutter really bad. Another one made me forget a lot, so, like, must have been one of the ones I was going on because there was like lots of rambling and it was the same thing over and over again. So it's just like, but I kept those. And so sometimes I'll go back and years ago, I would go back and I'd read it over because I had to write the book. So I would go through it and kind of like, what am I saying here? Like, I just don't understand. And then my friends would also talk about how, like, in the middle of the night, I would just like text some random things and they'd be like, we didn't know what you were talking about. Right. Just like, and
Yeah.
I thought I was texting and saying, like, coherent things and things were cohesive and they were streamlined. They're like, "No, we had no idea. We just know you were going through treatment and I thought you were losing your mind for a second," which I probably was. And what I thought was like I was communicating clearly, but I wasn't.
I think it's just when people talk about going through treatment, how hard it is, you can't even before I actually went into cancer research, I could not even I didn't know what that meant. Like, I
Mm,
know what things can be hard, but I think it's like, for example, I think sometimes we use words too often for what is they don't really apply to. For example, like saying, "Ah, this is just terrible." And it's like, "No, that's not terrible. This
mm,
is terrible."
yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
it's just
Mm,
so when people say it's hard, I think people don't register what does that actually mean in this context, because words like that are used so often. I think
mhm,
people don't really put it together, and especially when you have such a rare cancer where, you know, you're trying to tell people about it and people don't
yeah.
really register it. They
Yeah.
think for some reason it's like a lesser one,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and then the treatments are not great, so you're like, "Well, so we're just gonna, like, try this?" And the doctor's like, "Yeah, we're just gonna, like, see if this works." And then you kind of are, you're left to fate.
Mhm. I remember, like, begging the doctors if I could please, because there would be like certain points and it was just like too hard for me to do it. Like, I couldn't walk anymore. I was being pushed around in a wheelchair. I was so weak. I was so sick. I was just so, I started out, but the crazy thing is like I was on steroids, so it would make me eat a lot. I started out, I think I was like 130 when I was finished with treatment, literally done, IVs finished, port taken out. I think I was like 150 something, right? But then after treatment is over, steroids are done, they're finished. I went down to like 120. Like I was super thin, very skinny. And I looked even worse after I was finished with treatment. Like my body went through havoc. It was just the most bizarre thing. So yeah, so I would ask them like, "Listen, can I please like is there any way we could do like less treatment this time? Like I can't remember things. Like it's really hard on my body. Like I was a neutropenic for so many times and my accounts were just so low all the times. I had to get so many blood transfusions. I was like, "Can I please just can we not do this treatment this round?" And they'd be like, "Listen, we can't do that." Or I'd have to go through the military to see if I could stop it completely. Because there's another point in time where I was like, "Well, like, I don't think I wanna do this anymore. Like, it's really hard. I don't wanna do this." And they said, "Well, you're the military's property. You can't." What? I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I just don't know much about the military, so
Yeah.
very
I was
interesting.
not allowed
Okay.
to I was not allowed to stop the treatment because I was the military's property. I was like, "That is so strange." And that's what the doctors told me. I can't do it. And I begged, even my mother too. So like we talked about, I think maybe I had like 2 more weeks of treatment and then I was gonna go on this really, really long break. And I was like, let me just like I think I'm responding to it well. The cancer had been taken out. Like there's lots of, the dead tissue, of course, and all that. Like I felt like, well, I think I need to keep like beating myself down like this anymore. Like I feel like I'm cancer free, like it's okay. And they're like, no, we need to stick to the protocol. And the military says you can't do that. So no. And I was like, damn, what? Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
In a weird way, it's kind of good they were able to push you to continue through, but
Yeah.
it's interesting that felt like it at a certain point really wasn't your decision.
Yeah, it was not. The whole thing wasn't. And so when I do talk to people about the experience, I always try to reference like being on a roller coaster ride and it's going so fast and you're like not in control. You're not controlling it. Someone else is controlling this roller coaster ride and you're watching life just flash by. But you're on this ride and you can't get off until whoever stops it stops it. So that's how I felt. Like I was on this ride and I just have to just go through these motions because I couldn't process anything. I didn't know the right questions to ask. I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't know how this happened. But once we figured out it was Ewing sarcoma, I had to start treatment right away. I had to get a new biopsy. I had to do a bone marrow biopsy, which was the most painful biopsy I have ever done in my life. They don't numb it up. They have to, have you ever heard about them? Oh my gosh. So
I
they,
know about them, but
yes.
I don't know it's different when it's on the patient's side because
Oh
there's things
my
you just don't know.
gosh, yeah, and I remember telling them, like, "I can't take pain. My threshold for pain is really low." And they're like, "Oh, you're just gonna feel uncomfortable." I was like, "Okay." And they have to break the bone, right? So they're breaking the pelvic backbone area, they have to break it. And I remember the doctor who was working on my back, and she was like a little petite girl, maybe 100 pounds. And she was like, "Your back is so strong." And I was like, "Just break it. Like, just crack it already." And finally, they cracked it. I can hear it crack, and they sucked the bone marrow out. It was bad. It was extremely painful. I have PTSD from that experience from now on. I will never. But I feel like they should have put me to sleep for that. That was just a terrible procedure to be awake for. Horrible.
Yeah. No, that sounds awful to
Horrible.
be even to hear it and
Yeah.
feel it and go through the whole process if
It
you're like,
was
"Just do it."
yeah,
Like,
it was so bad, and they gave me, like, Ativan to kind of, like, calm me down. Remember I went in, my hair was kinda straight, it looks right now. Went in with, like, my hair straight, and when I came out, one side of my head was drenched in sweat and curly because I have curly hair. It was so painful. My body was going through traumatic trauma, right? I was sweating profusely. I came out, I was crying. It was just horrific. And when I, came outside in the wheelchair, I was just crying because I was like, I can't believe this is my life. Mom came and she wheeled me back into into my room, but it was just terrible. And it's like I didn't have a choice. I just had to do these things and this stuff and these treatments and the surgeries and just everything that entire 10 months was just being on that roller coaster ride and just waiting for it to end, because if it was up to me, I would have, stopped it a long time ago. But thank God I went through it, because it was hard. It was tough. And I had my mother as well.
Yeah. Also, after this is I hope this isn't too sharp of a segue, but like I know after all this had happened, I saw something on your website, something about the White House and helping pass an act for veterans. Can
Yeah.
you talk? I hope that's not too sharp of a turn, but I just really want to make sure I get that in there
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, so that's for the it's for the VA, and it's for the burn pits. So they are going to be recognizing those individuals who are surrounded by burn pits, me, other military, probably civilians in that area that came back with cancer, that is now going to be a linked cause, a direct cause and effect. You went to Iraq, you were exposed to these burn pits, you got cancer. This is a link that we're acknowledging, that this process of us burning the trash and you being involved in it and you getting sick with cancer, this is a link. Like, we're acknowledging this. And so now it's considered a they are acknowledging it, but it's also, you can claim it on the VA, right? So you can say, hey, like, I should be getting compensated for this. And so now people are getting compensated for being deployed in Iraq, the burn pits, and those toxic exposures that either ended somebody's life, or you got sick with a cancer, or got sick in general from those burn pits.
That makes a lot of sense because when you said batteries, bars, bins, all I could think was like that. And then you're talking about this the smoke and all of that, and they're doing this regularly. I mean, I was kind of thinking like that doesn't sound something about that sounds really off health
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's a lot of people. So they don't only come back with cancer, they'll come back with epilepsy. They'll come back with these like rashes that are
Oh,
terrible. They'll come back with different types of cancer, lots of head cancers, right? They'll come back with neck cancer, sarcomas. So they come back with all different types of problems. Now they're infertile, right? Because also too, like, you're there, you're not only exposed, but like the water quality is not great over there. The food is not great over there. So it's just, there's a lot of problems with being deployed um, in that area specifically.
so were you there for signing that? I don't know if it was called an act or an
Yeah.
agreement.
The
You were
PACT
there?
Act. I was there for the PACT Act. I got to meet the president. It was very emotional, because it's like, wow, all of this hard work has finally been it hasn't been done in vain. Like, I didn't go through all of this treatment for nothing. It's finally being recognized, because for a long time they didn't want to claim that. That's not something they want to take responsibility for. But there are so many cases of these people coming back with cancer, having these issues, dying out of nowhere, coming going to Iraq and being healthy, a 26-year-old healthy body, and then coming back and your body's like a 70-year-old. Like, what happened? Somebody's
Yeah.
responsible for that. So it's something that's now recognized, and I was a part of that process. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What year was that? Because I'm trying to think of who the president was at that time.
2022, and I believe it was Biden.
It was
Yep,
Biden.
it was
Okay.
Biden. Yep.
How was he seems like he's a nice guy. Like,
Yeah,
I
he
don't know.
was
He likes
nice.
ice cream, so
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that
We
to
love him.
me.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
he was he was very nice. I felt like, it's kind of just rehearsed stuff. They're there to do a job,
Yeah.
shake your hand, talk to you, take pictures, and then they got to go on with their life and all that. But it was pretty cool. It was pretty
That's
cool.
nice. It felt like it led up to something. There were so
Yeah,
many things that came out of this, but that too, it's like I was there to make sure that like
right.
people in the future, don't get something like this. And like,
Yeah,
unfortunately, you're one of the people who had to go through it in order for
yeah,
something like this to be passed. But
right.
then also you were
Yeah,
there so it could be passed. So that's really cool.
it's history. I made history,
Yeah, you
right?
made history.
I made
Exactly.
history, right? I don't know if it's in the history books or how that works, but I think it's pretty cool. So you can think about all the big rallies or things that people had to kind of fight for. And I'm in a kind of same situation where I was a part of that. And that is pretty, pretty big. I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be. You really should be. So to kind of this is a this story, there's a lot that came out of this. There's a
Mhm.
lot of motion that went in, that's come out of it. For people who are recently diagnosed, have friends that are recently diagnosed, even people who have no relationship to sarcoma, do you have any words of advice or anything you message you want to share? I'll let you kind of choose, but is
Yeah.
there anything you just want to like say that people
Yeah.
listening to this can take from it?
Yeah, so I feel like just in general with cancer, people think it's a guaranteed death sentence, and that is not something that's true. And I do believe that there's miracles every single day, right? And this is something my mother would ask me, or a talk that she gave me. She said, "There's miracles every single day. Why can't you be one of them?" Right? And I feel like we always cool or like we'll focus on the negative and the bad, like, oh my God, what if I die? What if this happens? What if that happens? Well, it's like, okay, well, why don't we change our frame of thinking and think more positive, right? Well, what if it's okay? What if it does work out? What if you are able to do all these great things after? And I feel like that is more healthy, focusing on the more positive and changing the narrative of cancer from being this horrific, terrible thing because it is bad. But there's also people like me that are still out there that are doing well in life and have, used this as a gift to give others and give them hope. So I think it's just really important that people don't focus on the negative so much that there's a like if anything there you focus on the more positive of course and you do have your bad days and that's okay to cry but we don't want to like live in pity. We want to be
Mm.
powerful. We want to empower ourselves. We want to make ourselves feel good. If being depressed and sad that makes you feel good, I don't think so. I think you should focus on things that we have more control over, which is our emotions, being positive, staying focused on what it is that where we want to get, what we can do after the treatment's over. So I really during my treatment process, we made up this like fairy tale land thing and I was like, these are all the great things I'm going to do. This is all the stuff I'm going to do. And we definitely changed what we were experiencing to something better because it wasn't always days that I was crying. I was laughing sometimes. I was having the best time of my life. Like most of my core memories of that is me and my mom like cracking up, having the ball. There was one time it was like 4 in the morning and the ward was full of people and my mom and I are just laughing and having such a good time. And the nurse comes in and they're like, "Can you guys please keep it down?" And I was like, we're like, I know. We're like, oh my God, we have to be quiet. Like, what are we doing? It's like, I think we lose sight of things. Like, we don't always have to feel the way our situation is. We can feel better. We can change that. I think that is something that's extremely powerful and that we need to focus on is we can change how we feel now, even if our situations are not the best, but you can change how you feel, how you react to things and be positive because I do feel like in that positivity, there's so much more strength in there than being depressed and sad and feeling hopeless and powerless.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that because I think I mean, this is a given, but it's scary to get diagnosed with any cancer
Of
because
course.
there are a lot of there are horror stories out there
Of
and there are
course.
honest horror stories. There are
Yep.
horror stories even if you survive. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very very scary experience, but I think it's good to I think that's great letting people know like it's not a death sentence.
Right.
Just means a lot of hard work
Yeah.
is coming up.
Yeah,
So,
and it's something that can be done, and especially having a support system is also really important. So, if you don't have a mother
mm,
who's gonna quit your job, that's fine. You can find friends, you can find communities, there's social media, like, there's so many people you can reach out to talk to kind of bounce ideas off of and be like, "Well, what am I going to expect with this?" Or, "What happens if this happens?" So, there's support out there and definitely not doing this, going through treatment alone because that's not a thing. Do not do that
yeah,
because that is extremely hard. You need somebody in your corner who's going to pour love and positivity back into your life because as the patient, you can get sucked up and lost in the land of depression because it is very sad. It is very hard. It is a very lonely disease. But if you have somebody who can kind of keep you afloat and remind you that, hey, you can still laugh. We can still have a great time at 4 in the morning in the hospital and be cracking up. Like you can still have and experience all the great, lovely things that life has to offer. We just have to find somebody that can kind of pull us out of that possible deep, dark depression because it can be hard, but it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't.
Thank you so much again, and
Mhm.
I'm sure you're gonna continue to be really active in all the sarcoma communities, especially on
Absolutely.
like social media and all that. But I'm very excited to see what else comes out of your experience in your life, in addition to
Yes,
the book and the act you got
yes,
passed, and now you're
yes,
talking, and so you're doing all these
yes.
really great things.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I definitely hope that somebody out there finds some sort of encouragement from me sharing my story because that is important to me.
Great.